Captain Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he stared at the massive asteroid floating before his ship. The Iron Maiden had been mining in the belt for 3 months now, and this rock looked like their biggest prize yet. His crew of 12 had become like family during their long journey from Earth, and each successful haul meant better pay for everyone back home. Lisa Carter called out from the engine room that all systems were running smooth. She had been with Jake for 5 years now and knew the ship better than anyone. Her hands could fix anything that broke, and in deep space that skill meant the difference between life and death. Rick Hansen sat at the weapons console, keeping watch for pirates or claimed jumpers who might try to steal their hard work. The belt was dangerous territory where the law meant nothing, and only the strong survived. Amy Brooks guided the ship closer to the asteroid with steady hands. She had been navigating space routes since she was 18 and could plot a course through the densest debris field without breaking a sweat. Her charts showed this asteroid was designated XK7, just another number in the vast database of rocks, floating in the cold darkness between Mars and Jupiter. The asteroid measured nearly 2 kilometers across and was rich in iron and rare metals. Jake knew they could retire early if this haul went well. The mining lasers cut deep into the rock, sending chunks of valuable ore into the ship's cargo hold. Everything seemed normal until the drill hit something that definitely was not natural: rock. Lisa ran scans from her console and frowned at the readings. The object buried deep in the asteroid was made of materials she had never seen before. The metal seemed to absorb their scanner beams instead of reflecting them back. Jake made the decision to dig it out carefully, knowing that alien artifacts were worth more than any amount of raw ore. It took 6 hours to extract the object without damaging it. The thing was about the size of a small car, and looked like it was made from crystal and metal fused together in impossible ways. Strange symbols covered its surface that seemed to shift and change when nobody was looking directly at them. Rick wanted to blast it back into space, but Jake overruled him. When they brought the artifact into the cargo bay, it began to glow with a soft blue light. Amy backed away nervously while Lisa approached with her scanner. The moment her equipment touched the crystal surface, the entire artifact came alive with pulsing energy. Holographic displays erupted from its core, filling the cargo bay with images of star charts and alien writing. The displays showed their solar system at the center of a vast network that stretched across the entire galaxy. Hundreds of similar artifacts were marked on worlds they had never heard of, connected by energy lines that formed geometric patterns too complex to understand. Earth sat at the heart of it all, like the center of a massive web. Jake realized they had found something that would change everything. This was not just some random alien junk floating in space. Someone or something had placed these artifacts deliberately, and humanity was supposed to find them. The implications made his head spin as he tried to process what they were seeing. Lisa managed to download some of the data before the artifact powered down again. The star charts showed precise locations for dozens of other artifacts scattered across known space and beyond. Each location was marked with symbols that seemed to indicate some kind of countdown or sequence. Whatever this network was designed to do, it was still waiting for something to activate it. Rick pointed out that they needed to report this discovery to Earth Defense Command immediately. Admiral Connor Phillips would want to know about alien technology this advanced, especially if it was connected to their home system. Jake agreed, but worried about what would happen once the military got involved. Sometimes the best discoveries ended up locked away in secret labs where nobody could benefit from them. Amy plotted a course back to Earth while Jake encrypted their findings. The trip home would take 2 weeks, but he knew their lives had just changed forever. Whatever civilization had built this network was far more advanced than humanity, and they had specifically included Earth in their plans. The question was whether they were friend or enemy. As the Iron Maiden left the asteroid belt behind, none of them noticed the small alien probe that had been watching from a distance. It recorded everything that happened and immediately transmitted the data across space to its masters. The hegemony had been waiting for this moment for over 1,000 years, and now the humans had finally found what they were looking for. The probe followed the mining ship at a safe distance, its sensors locked onto the alien artifact now stored in their cargo hold. Soon, the Hegemony Council would decide what to do about these upstart humans who had stumbled onto secrets that could reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. Some wanted to eliminate the threat before it could grow stronger, while others believed the humans might actually be the ones they had been waiting for all along. Europa Station orbited Jupiter like a massive metal moon, bristling with weapons and communication arrays that could reach every corner of human space. Admiral Connor Phillips stood in the command center watching the Iron Maiden dock with their outer ring. The mining ship looked tiny compared to the battleships and carriers that called Europa home, but it carried cargo that might be more valuable than the entire fleet. Dr. Helen Garcia waited in the secure lab with her team of xenobiologists and engineers. She had studied alien life for 20 years without ever seeing actual proof that advanced civilizations existed beyond Earth. Now Captain Morrison was bringing her the first confirmed alien technology in human history, and her hands shook with excitement as she prepared her equipment. General Peter King commanded the station's military forces and was not as optimistic as the scientists. His job was to protect humanity from threats, and unknown alien technology definitely qualified as a potential danger. He had soldiers standing by in case the artifact turned out to be some kind of weapon or trap designed to destroy anyone who found it. Jake Morrison and his crew were escorted to the lab under heavy guard. The artifact sat in the center of the room inside a containment field that could stop anything from escaping. Lisa Carter worked with the station engineers to interface their computers with the alien device, while Rick Hansen and Amy Brooks watched nervously from behind protective barriers. The moment the human computers connected with the artifact, every screen in the lab filled with alien symbols and star charts. Helen Garcia recorded everything while her assistants tried to translate the strange writing. The images showed not just the locations of other artifacts, but also detailed information about the species that had built them thousands of years ago. Commander Alex Turner arrived from the diplomatic corps just as the artifact began projecting three-dimensional holograms of alien beings. The first looked like a giant insect with multiple arms and compound eyes that reflected light like mirrors. The second appeared to be made entirely of living crystal that pulsed with internal energy. The third was humanoid, but covered in metallic scales that shifted color as it moved. The holographic aliens began speaking in languages that human computers could not understand, but their translation programs slowly began making progress. The message was clearly meant for whoever found the artifacts, and it was not a friendly greeting. These beings called themselves the Hegemony, and they had been watching humanity's expansion into space with growing concern about human aggression and unpredictability. Helen Garcia worked frantically to decode more of the message, while Alex Turner prepared for what appeared to be humanity's first official contact with alien intelligence. The Hegemony had apparently been testing younger species for centuries, using these artifacts as triggers. Most species failed their tests and were absorbed into the alliance as junior members with limited rights and freedoms. The aliens explained that the artifacts were left by an ancient race called the progenitors, who had seeded the galaxy with life before disappearing into legend. According to hegemony law, only species that proved themselves worthy through trials of combat, intelligence, and wisdom could claim their inheritance from these mysterious predecessors. Humanity had found multiple artifacts, which suggested they might be candidates for this inheritance. General King did not like the sound of trials and inheritance. His experience told him that aliens who talked about testing other species usually had conquest in mind. He ordered the fleet to battle stations while diplomats tried to establish peaceful communication. The last thing humanity needed was a war, with an advanced alien alliance that had been watching them for who knew how long. The holographic message concluded with coordinates for a meeting place in neutral space where hegemony representatives would arrive in 7 days to begin humanity's evaluation. Failure to appear would be considered a hostile act that justified immediate military action against Earth and all human colonies. Success would grant humanity membership in the galactic community, but failure meant absorption or destruction. Alex. Turner immediately began preparing for the most important diplomatic mission in human history. He would need experts in every field to help him understand what these trials might involve and how humanity could prove itself worthy. Jake Morrison volunteered his crew to serve as guides since they had discovered the first artifact and might understand its technology better than anyone else. Lisa Carter spent the next 3 days working with Helen Garcia to unlock more information from the artifact. They learned that the progenitors had apparently been incredibly advanced beings who created the artifacts as both a test and a gift for younger species. The technology could enhance any civilization that proved worthy of inheriting it, but it could also be used to enforce the will of the hegemony if necessary. Rick Hansen trained with station security forces in case the diplomatic mission went wrong and turned into a fighting retreat. Amy Brooks studied the star charts to plot escape routes and identify potential safe havens if humanity needed to flee deeper into unexplored space. Everyone understood that the next few weeks would determine whether humans remained free or became subjects of an alien empire. The day of departure arrived with Earth's best and brightest boarding the diplomatic vessel Hope's Dawn for the journey to neutral space. Admiral Phillips gave them his finest escort ships, while General King provided enough firepower to fight their way out if negotiations failed. Helen Garcia brought portable scanners to study any alien technology they encountered, while Alex Turner rehearsed first contact protocols that might prevent a war. As the human fleet left Europa Station behind, none of them knew that hegemony. Scouts had already been observing their preparations. The aliens were impressed by human efficiency and determination, but concerned about their obvious military capabilities. The insectoid Queen Vextar wanted to crush this potential threat before it could challenge hegemony dominance, while the crystalline Resonance Prime believed these humans might actually be the inheritors the progenitors had prophesied would eventually appear. The neutral meeting point was an ancient space station built by a long-dead civilization in the void between star systems. As the Hope's Dawn approached the massive structure, its crew could see alien ships already waiting for them. The moment of truth had arrived, and humanity's future hung in the balance of decisions that would be made in the next few hours. The ancient space station drifted in the darkness between stars like a monument to civilizations long forgotten. Its builders had vanished millions of years ago, but their technology still functioned perfectly, as if time meant nothing to the alien materials. Commander Alex Turner led the human delegation through corridors that seemed to stretch forever, their footsteps echoing in the vast emptiness. Queen Vextar waited in the central chamber with her compound eyes reflecting the light from a dozen directions at once. Her insectoid form towered over the humans, and the clicking sounds she made when speaking sent chills down their spines. Beside her stood Resonance Prime, a being of living crystal whose internal light pulsed with each thought. The third representative appeared to be made of flowing metal that constantly shifted between different shapes. Alex Turner presented humanity's case with careful words, while Captain Morrison and his crew stood ready to provide technical expertise about the artifacts they had discovered. The hegemony listened without emotion as humans explained their rapid expansion across the solar system and their hopes for peaceful contact with other intelligent species. What they heard in response made their blood run cold. The trials would test 3 fundamental aspects of any species seeking to claim the progenitor inheritance: Military prowess would be evaluated on the war world of Carathan Prime, where human forces would face combat scenarios designed to break even the most experienced soldiers. Scientific capability would be judged on Lumina, where ancient progenitor puzzles had stumped alien researchers for thousands of years. Diplomatic wisdom would be tested on Verdania, where two subspecies had been fighting a civil war for centuries. Colonel Brad Thompson commanded the military contingent assigned to Carathan Prime. He had led human forces through the Mars Rebellion and the Asteroid Pirate Wars, but nothing had prepared him for what waited on the alien world. The planet's surface was covered with massive war machines left behind by previous species who had attempted the trials. Most had failed, and their equipment now served as obstacles in an ever-changing battlefield. The Hegemony War Masters explained the rules with cold efficiency. Human forces would have 1 week to capture and hold 3 strategic positions against automated defenses that adapted to every tactic used against them. Previous species had failed because they relied too heavily on superior technology or overwhelming force. The machines learned quickly and countered any strategy that was used more than once. Thompson divided his forces into small, flexible units that could adapt quickly to changing situations. He had studied human military history and knew that their greatest victories came from unconventional thinking and willingness to sacrifice for each other. The alien machines were programmed to expect logical military doctrine, so he would give them something completely different. Meanwhile, Dr. Emma Davis arrived on Lumina with a team of humanity's brightest scientists and engineers. The Crystal Gardens covered the planet's surface like a vast computer network made of living gems that responded to thought and emotion. Previous alien species had approached the puzzles with pure logic and mathematical precision, but the progenitor technology seemed to require something more intuitive. Emma realized that the crystals were not just machines, but living entities that wanted to communicate rather than simply be solved. She approached them like a biologist, studying a new life form instead of an engineer trying to fix a broken device. Her willingness to think outside traditional scientific methods allowed her team to make connections that had eluded other species for millennia. The third trial took place on Verdania, where diplomat Kate Murphy faced her greatest challenge yet. The planet was home to 2 subspecies of the same race who had been fighting over philosophical differences that seemed minor to outside observers. Previous diplomatic efforts by other species had failed because they tried to impose solutions, rather than help the warring factions find their own path to peace. Kate spent weeks living among both groups, learning their languages and understanding their grievances. She discovered that the conflict was not really about territory or resources, but about fundamental disagreements over how their society should evolve. Instead of taking sides, she helped each group understand what they had in common and why their differences actually made them stronger together. Captain Morrison coordinated between all 3 trials while uncovering disturbing evidence about the hegemony's true intentions. Hidden files in the station's ancient computers revealed that the alien alliance had been manipulating trial outcomes for other species to ensure they failed. Only a few civilizations had ever been allowed to pass, and those were absorbed into the hegemony as puppet states rather than true equals. The evidence showed that a secret faction within the hegemony called the Eternal Order believed that releasing another inheritor species would disrupt the careful balance of power they had maintained for thousands of years. They had sabotaged previous trials and were planning to do the same to humanity, regardless of how well humans performed in the tests. Thompson's forces on Carathan Prime began achieving impossible victories through tactics that combined human intuition with alien technology. His soldiers fought not just as individuals, but as a unified force where each member was willing to die for the others. The war machines had never encountered this level of cooperation and began making errors as they tried to counter strategies. That seemed to defy military logic. Emma's team on Lumina unlocked progenitor secrets that had been hidden for ages by approaching the crystal entities as partners rather than puzzles to be solved. The ancient technology responded to human creativity and emotional intelligence in ways that pure logic could never achieve. Her discoveries began revealing the true nature of the progenitor inheritance and why it had been hidden from most species. Kate's diplomatic efforts on Verdania achieved something that alien mediators had thought impossible. The two subspecies began working together to solve their problems instead of fighting over them. Her success demonstrated that humanity's greatest strength was not superior technology or military might, but their ability to bring different groups together through understanding and empathy. As the trials neared their conclusion, Morrison realized that the real test was not whether humans could pass the challenges, but whether they could survive the Eternal Order's sabotage attempts. The faction had decided that humanity was too dangerous to be allowed into the galactic community and was preparing to eliminate them regardless of trial outcomes. The final phase of each trial began with hegemony observers noting that humans approached problems differently than any previous species. Instead of trying to dominate or control the challenges, they worked with them to find solutions that benefited everyone involved. This approach was exactly what the progenitors had intended when they created the trials, but it was also what the Eternal Order feared most about letting humans claim their inheritance. Major Dan Rodriguez led his reconnaissance team through the abandoned hegemony outpost on the edge of known space, their footsteps silent on metal floors that had not seen visitors for decades. The facility had been marked as decommissioned in official records, but intelligence suggested it was still being used by elements within the Alien Alliance who did not want their activities monitored by the main government. What they found in the hidden data cores made Dan's blood run cold. The Eternal Order had been systematically sabotaging species trials for over 2,000 years, ensuring that only civilizations they could easily control were allowed to pass. Detailed records showed how they had manipulated previous tests through equipment failures, misinformation, and direct military intervention when necessary. The worst discovery was evidence that the Eternal Order was already moving against humanity. Cloaked ships had been positioned near Earth's outer colonies while human forces were distracted by the trials on distant worlds. The attack would come soon, designed to look like the work of space pirates or rogue aliens, rather than an official hegemony operation. Dan transmitted his findings back to Earth just minutes before Eternal Order ships began their assault on the Mars colonies. Base Commander Lisa Bell watched in horror as invisible attackers struck mining facilities and research stations across the Red Planet. Her defense forces could barely track the enemy vessels, let alone fight back against their advanced stealth technology and energy weapons. The attack spread quickly to other human settlements throughout the solar system. Titan's methane processing plants disappeared in brilliant flashes of light, while Jupiter's orbital platforms came under bombardment from weapons that seemed to fire from empty space. Millions of civilians fled deeper into the system as outer defenses crumbled before an enemy they could not see. Engineer Tony Clark worked frantically in his laboratory on Luna, combining human technology with data recovered from the progenitor artifacts to develop new defensive systems. The ancient alien science offered possibilities that human engineers had never imagined, but adapting it to work with their equipment required inspiration as much as technical skill. His breakthrough came when he realized that progenitor technology was designed to respond to biological neural patterns rather than electronic circuits. By interfacing human brains directly with the alien systems, he could create energy shields and weapons that adapted in real time to whatever threats they faced. The process was dangerous, and not everyone could handle the mental strain. But it gave humanity a fighting chance. Admiral Phillips coordinated the defense of Earth while trying to maintain communication with the trial teams on distant worlds. The hegemony claimed ignorance about the attacks, insisting they were the work of unknown raiders rather than member species. Official diplomatic channels remained open, but everyone knew the truth about who was really behind the assault. Captain, Morrison's team discovered that progenitor beacons throughout the galaxy could be activated to call for help from automated guardian systems left behind by the ancient race. The technology had been dormant for millions of years, but human neural patterns seemed capable of awakening it in ways that other species could not achieve. Each activated beacon sent ripples through space that the Eternal Order could not ignore. Colonel Thompson's forces completed their trials on Carathan Prime, just as word arrived about the attacks on human space. The Hegemony War Masters were impressed by human tactical innovation, but claimed they had no authority to intervene in what appeared to be a separate conflict. Thompson knew this was a lie, but played along while secretly preparing his troops for immediate deployment back home. Dr. Davis made her final breakthrough on Lumina by successfully communicating with the crystal entities about the true nature of the progenitor inheritance. The ancient race had not disappeared, but had transcended physical existence, leaving behind their technology to guide worthy species toward galactic stewardship. The trials were meant to identify civilizations capable of protecting and nurturing life rather than simply conquering it. Kate Murphy achieved the impossible on Verdania by negotiating a permanent peace between the warring subspecies. Her success proved that humanity possessed the diplomatic wisdom necessary to handle the responsibilities of galactic leadership. More importantly, she convinced several hegemony moderates that humans were nothing like the aggressive conquerors that Eternal Order propaganda had portrayed them as. The Guardian systems began activating across the galaxy as more progenitor. Beacons responded to human neural patterns. Ancient weapons platforms and defense networks that had been silent for eons suddenly came online, their sensors scanning for threats to species that showed promise of inheriting progenitor technology. The Eternal Order found themselves facing opposition they had thought was permanently inactive. Dan Rodriguez and his team infiltrated an Eternal Order command ship to gather intelligence about their fleet movements and strategic plans. What they learned was both terrifying and encouraging. The faction was much smaller than they had pretended to be, but their technology was more advanced than most hegemony members possessed. They had been secretly developing weapons and tactics specifically designed to eliminate potential inheritor species. Lisa Bell's defense forces began turning the tide of battle as Tony Clark's new systems came online across human space. Energy. Shields that could stop Eternal Order weapons appeared around major colonies, while human ships equipped with progenitor technology began hunting the cloaked attackers. For the first time since the assault began, the invisible enemy started taking casualties. The situation reached a critical point when Eternal Order hardliners decided to escalate their assault rather than risk exposure of their activities. They launched a direct attack on Earth itself, using weapons that could crack continents and boil oceans. The attack would eliminate humanity as a threat while providing a cover story about rogue aliens that the hegemony government could not ignore. Admiral Phillips received warning of the incoming strike with barely enough time to respond. Every human ship in the solar system moved to intercept the attack while civilian populations evacuated to underground shelters that might not be enough to save them. The fate of humanity would be decided in the next few hours, and their survival depended on whether progenitor technology could stand against weapons designed specifically to counter it. Captain Morrison made a desperate decision to activate every progenitor beacon simultaneously, sending a massive signal across the galaxy that would either summon help or alert every enemy to humanity's location. The gamble was enormous, but with Earth itself under direct attack, there was no choice but to risk everything on the hope that the ancient guardians would respond to their call. The activated beacons created a network of energy that stretched across space and time, connecting human minds to progenitor technology in ways that neither species had experienced before. For a brief moment, Morrison and his crew felt the presence of the ancient race and understood their true purpose in the galaxy. The knowledge would either save humanity or destroy them, but there was no turning back from the path they had chosen. The progenitor home system appeared on their screens like something from a dream that had become reality. Admiral Phillips led the combined human and allied fleet toward Axiom Prime, a massive artificial world that served as both graveyard and monument to the most advanced civilization the galaxy had ever known. The journey from Earth had taken 3 weeks, but the activated beacon network made it feel like they had traveled through time itself. Lieutenant Colonel Rachel Stone commanded the ground forces as they prepared to enter the progenitor city ship that orbited the artificial world like a moon made of living metal. Her soldiers came from every human colony and military branch, united by their shared determination to protect their species from extinction. Allied aliens who had broken away from Eternal Order control fought alongside them, proving that cooperation was possible between different species. Dr. Garcia worked frantically to decode the final progenitor messages as their fleet approached. The ancient structures. The city ship was not just a monument, but an active testing facility where the last trial would determine humanity's worthiness to inherit galactic stewardship. Unlike the previous tests, this one would judge the entire species based on decisions made by their representatives in the next few hours. The Eternal Order fleet arrived just behind them, led by hardline commanders who would rather destroy the progenitor legacy than allow humans to claim it. Their ships were fewer in number but equipped with weapons that had been developed specifically to counter ancient technology. The final battle would be fought among artifacts that had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations. Captain Morrison felt the weight of responsibility as he piloted a shuttle toward the city ship's docking bay. His crew had started this journey as simple miners looking for valuable ore, but now they carried the hopes of their entire species. Lisa Carter monitored the shuttle's systems, while Rick Hansen and Amy Brooks scanned for threats among the massive structures that surrounded them. The city ship's interior defied human understanding of physics and engineering. Corridors stretched in directions that seemed impossible, while chambers opened into spaces larger than they could possibly contain. Dr. Garcia's instruments detected energy patterns that suggested the structure existed partially outside normal space-time, allowing it to serve as a bridge between different dimensions of reality. Commander Turner led a diplomatic team to establish contact with moderate hegemony forces who had arrived to witness the final trial. Many alien species were beginning to question whether the Eternal Order truly represented their interests or had been manipulating galactic politics for their own benefit. The outcome of humanity's test would determine the future balance of power throughout known space. The final trial chamber lay at the heart of the city ship, its walls covered with symbols and displays that showed the history of every species that had attempted to claim the progenitor inheritance. Most had failed not because they lacked courage or intelligence, but because they approached the test with selfish motives. The ancient race had designed their legacy to benefit the entire galaxy, not just the species that discovered it. Morrison faced the ultimate choice, as holographic displays showed him 2 possible futures for humanity and the galaxy. The first path would grant humans exclusive access to progenitor technology, making them the dominant force in galactic civilization, but isolating them from other species who would fear their power. The second path would share the inheritance with all worthy civilizations, creating a true partnership among equals. The decision carried enormous implications for billions of beings across the galaxy. Human supremacy would ensure their species' survival, but might ultimately lead to the same stagnation and conflict that had plagued previous galactic empires. Cooperation would mean sharing power and resources, but could create a civilization greater than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Outside the city ship, the battle raged between Eternal Order forces and the combined human-allied fleet. Admiral Phillips coordinated the defense while his ships used newly installed progenitor technology to fight against enemies who had seemed invincible just weeks before. The ancient Guardian systems had activated throughout the region, but their programming prevented them from taking sides in conflicts between organic species. Colonel Thompson's veterans from Carathan Prime led assault teams against Eternal Order boarding parties who attempted to take control of key systems within the city ship. The fighting was brutal and desperate, as both sides knew that control of the progenitor legacy would determine the fate of galactic civilization. Human soldiers fought with the determination of those defending their homeworld, while their enemies battled to preserve the status quo that had kept them in power for millennia. Dr. Davis used her connection with the Lumina crystals to access deeper levels of progenitor technology within the city ship. Her discoveries revealed that the ancient race had foreseen this moment and designed their systems to respond differently depending on humanity's choices. The wrong decision would not just deny them the inheritance, but could trigger safeguards that would prevent any species from ever claiming it. Kate Murphy worked to rally moderate hegemony members who were beginning to see that the Eternal Order's actions threatened everyone's future. Her diplomatic skills proved crucial in preventing the conflict from spreading to other star systems, where billions of innocent beings would suffer from a war they had no part in creating. The alliances she forged in those desperate hours would reshape galactic politics for generations to come. The moment of decision arrived as Morrison stood before the central progenitor interface, with the fate of countless worlds hanging on his next words. The ancient system waited for his choice, while the battle outside reached its climax. Human forces were holding their own, but they could not win through military force alone. The real victory would come from proving that humanity deserved to inherit the responsibility of galactic leadership. Morrison made his choice with the wisdom that came from understanding humanity's greatest strength. They had never conquered through superior technology or overwhelming force, but by inspiring others to join them in building something better than what came before. The progenitor inheritance would be shared with all species that proved themselves worthy, creating a true partnership among the stars. The city ship responded to his decision by broadcasting a signal that reached every corner of the galaxy. Progenitor. Technology began activating on thousands of worlds, but it would only respond to species that demonstrated the same qualities humanity had shown during their trials. The ancient race had finally found the inheritors they had been waiting for, not to rule the galaxy, but to guide it toward a future worthy of their sacrifice. The Eternal Order fleet found their weapons failing as progenitor systems throughout. The region began actively opposing their aggressive actions. Their ships were not destroyed but disabled, their crews left alive to face judgment from the hegemony government they had betrayed. The age of manipulation and control was ending, replaced by an era of cooperation and mutual respect among all galactic civilizations. President Janet Walsh stood before the gathered representatives of 47 different species in the newly constructed Federation Hall on Earth. 6 months had passed since the final trial at Axiom Prime, and the galaxy had changed in ways that few could have imagined. The hegemony was dissolving peacefully as member species chose to join the new Galactic Federation based on principles of cooperation rather than domination. Admiral Morrison, promoted after his crucial role in humanity's inheritance trials, oversaw the integration of human and alien technologies across hundreds of worlds. The Iron Maiden had been transformed into a mobile research station that traveled between star systems, helping newly liberated species unlock their potential through progenitor technology. His original crew remained with him, their mining expertise proving valuable in locating and excavating ancient artifacts. Chief Engineer Carter led mixed teams of human and alien specialists who worked together to restore war-damaged worlds and develop new technologies that benefited all species. Her workshops had become symbols of the cooperative spirit that humanity brought to galactic civilization. Former enemies now worked side by side to solve problems that had seemed impossible when each species faced them alone. The transformation had not been without challenges. Some hegemony hardliners refused to accept the new order and retreated to isolated systems where they continued their old ways of thinking. Several human colonies struggled with the rapid changes as alien refugees arrived seeking new homes and opportunities. Integration required patience and understanding from all sides. Dr. Garcia established the Institute for Progenitor Studies with research facilities on 12 different worlds. Her teams included beings from species that had been enemies just months before, united by their shared curiosity about the ancient race that had shaped galactic history. Each discovery revealed new aspects of progenitor wisdom and technology that could help current civilizations avoid past mistakes. Commander Turner served as humanity's first ambassador to the Federation Council, where his diplomatic experience proved invaluable in mediating disputes between species with very different cultures and values. His greatest success was establishing the Universal Rights Declaration that protected the sovereignty of all member worlds while encouraging peaceful cooperation and mutual aid. The progenitor inheritance had indeed been shared with all species. That demonstrated worthiness through their actions rather than their military power. Warlike civilizations found their access to ancient technology limited until they learned to channel their aggression into constructive purposes. Species that had been oppressed under hegemony rule discovered capabilities they never knew they possessed. Captain Morrison often reflected on how much their lives had changed since that day when they found the first artifact in asteroid XK7. What had started as a routine mining operation had become the catalyst for the greatest transformation in galactic history. The crew that had once worried about making enough money to retire early now helped shape the destiny of countless worlds. Lisa Bell commanded the new Federation Defense Force, which focused on protecting member worlds from external threats rather than enforcing political control. Her innovative tactics combined human flexibility with alien technology to create military strategies that emphasized defense and deterrence over conquest. Former Eternal Order members who had reformed their ways served alongside their former enemies. Tony Clark's research into human progenitor neural interfaces had revolutionized how different species interacted with ancient technology. His discoveries allowed beings with very different mental structures to access progenitor systems that had previously been incompatible with their brain patterns. The breakthrough opened up new possibilities for cooperation between species that had thought they could never work together. The most ambitious project was the New Horizon expedition, designed to explore beyond the galaxy's edge in search of other civilizations that might benefit from progenitor technology. Young Lieutenant Sam Wright volunteered to lead the first intergalactic mission, inspired by the heroes who had opened the stars to peaceful exploration rather than conquest. Wright's team included volunteers from dozens of different species, each bringing unique skills and perspectives to the challenge of crossing the vast emptiness between galaxies. Their ship incorporated both human ingenuity and alien engineering, enhanced by progenitor technology that could sustain them during the centuries-long journey to distant star clusters. President Walsh addressed the Federation Council about humanity's role as first inheritors, emphasizing that the title came with responsibilities rather than privileges. Humans would serve as guides and facilitators, helping other species unlock their potential rather than ruling over them. The speech was broadcast across the galaxy and received by billions of beings who saw hope for a better future. The ceremony concluded with the activation of the first intergalactic beacon, designed to signal other galaxies that this region of space had achieved the level of cooperation and wisdom that the progenitors had hoped to see. The beacon's light would travel for millions of years before reaching its destinations, carrying with it proof that different species could indeed work together for the common good. Admiral Morrison stood on the observation deck of the Iron Maiden, as it prepared for another mission to help integrate newly discovered progenitor sites into the Federation network. His crew had become legends in their own time, but they remained the same people who had started as simple miners with dreams of striking it rich among the asteroids. The final message from the progenitors had been decoded and displayed throughout. Federation space as a reminder of the principles that should guide their civilization. The ancient race had indeed transcended physical existence, but their wisdom lived on through the species they had prepared to inherit their legacy. The message spoke of strength that came not from conquering others, but from lifting them up to stand as equals. As the Iron Maiden left Earth orbit for another mission among the stars, its crew carried with them the hopes and dreams of countless beings who had found freedom through cooperation rather than conflict. The galaxy had been transformed from a place of fear and oppression into a community where different species could work together to build something greater than any of them could achieve alone. The age of humanity's legacy had begun, but it was a legacy shared with all who proved themselves worthy through their actions rather than their words. Fire and iron had given way to wisdom and compassion as the driving forces of galactic civilization, creating a future that honored the progenitor vision while allowing each species to contribute their unique gifts to the common good. Young beings across the galaxy looked up at the stars with wonder instead of fear, knowing that the universe held infinite possibilities for those brave enough to explore them. The legacy of fire and iron had become a legacy of hope and unity that would endure for generations yet to come.